criticism. In here, I want to do a presentation about psychoanalytic criticism summary from a book created. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Gilang Ramadhan. My name 22114-20030 from class A literary criticism. In here, I want to do a presentation about psychoanalytic criticism based on a book written by Bessler. Introduction. Most of us, at one time or another, have attempted to interpret either our own dream or those of others. We are seemingly fascinated by the bizarre twist of fate, while exploit and often highly sexual content of our dreams. Many of us wonder if our true feeling, concern, and action really surface in such dream experience. Our dreams and those of others fascinate us can be denied, whether it be their bizarre and often erotic content or even their seemingly prophetic powers. Dreams cause us to question and explore that part of our minds over which we have seemingly little control, the unconscious. Developing both a body of theory and a practical method of his science of the mind, Freud became the founding father of psychoanalysis, a method of treating emotional and psychological disorder by having the patient talk freely in a patient analysis setting about early childhood experience. When we apply these same methods to our interpretation of work of literature, we engage in psychoanalytic criticism. Introduction to psychoanalytic criticism. Psychoanalytic literary criticism is a literary criticism or literary theory which in method, concept, or form is influenced by the tradition of psychoanalytic begun by Sigmund Freud. Psychoanalytic criticism examines 1. How human mental and psychoanalytical development occurs, how the human mind works, the root caused by psychoanalytical problem, how the id, ego, and superego are represented. Historical development. The theories and practice of Sigmund Freud provide the foundation for psychoanalytic criticism. While working with his patient diagnosed as hysterics, Freud theorized that the root of their problems was psychological, not physical. This patient, he believed, had suppressed incestuous desires with which still they had unconsciously refused to deal. Freud asserted, believing that our reasoning and analytical skills are solely responsible for our behavior. But it is the unconscious, Freud believed, that evidence itself through slip of the tongue, dream, art, and irrational behavior that motivates most of our action. The superego acts like an interior sensor. The ego's job is to mediate between instinctual desires of the id and the demands of social pressure instituted by the superego. And what it has the most frequently repressed in all of us is the sexual desires of our early childhood. According to Freud, we go through 3 overlapping phases during our childhood. 1. Oral phase. Our sexuality or libido is activated by sucking our mother breast to be fed. 2. Anal stage. The anus become the object of pleasure when the child learns the delight of defecation. And the 3rd, phallic stage. The child's sexual desires or libido is directed toward the genitals. At this point of our development, Freud said, the pleasure principle basically controls the child. The child cares only on his or her own pleasure and recognizes neither male or female. During the late infantile stage, around the age 3 and 6, both male and female child wish to possess their mother, but each child recognizes the father as a rival for his or her mother affection. Each must pass through the castration complex after the child's sexual development proceeds normally. Each the little boy and girl will eventually complete their transition into manhood and womanhood through some process. In dreams, the unconscious express its suppressed wish and desires. Since such wish may be too hard for the conscious psyche to handle without producing feeling of rage, the unconscious will present our unreleased wish through symbol, softening our desires. When certain repressed feeling or ideas cannot be released, when the repressed feeling or ideas cannot be adequately released through theme, jokes, or mechanism, the ego must act and block any outward response. That being said, the ego and it become involved in our internal battle that Freud called neurosis. Neurosis show itself in many physical and psychological abnormalities. For Freud, the unresolved conflict that gives rise to any neurosis constitute the stuff of literature. A work of literature, he believed, was the external expression of the author's unconscious mind. The literary work must then be treated like a dream, applying psychoanalytic techniques to the text to uncover the author's hidden motivation, repressed desires, and wish. Carl Gustav Jung, Freud's most famous student, the Swiss psychologist, physician, and psychiatric disagrees. He rejects Freud's analysis of the contents of the unconscious, and he formulated a new approach to the understanding of a literary work. According to Jung, human psyche consists of three parts. One, conscious, directly affected by the unconscious. Second, personal unconscious, exists directly below the surface of the conscious and contains elements of all those private affairs occur on our daily life. And the third, collective unconscious, holds the cumulative knowledge, experience, and image of the entire human race. People from around the world respond to certain stories in the same way, not because everyone knows, but because lying deep in our collective unconscious are the racial memories of humanity past. These memories exist in a form of archetype, patterns, or image of repeated human experience and express themselves in our stories, dream, religion, and fantasies. Jung developed his method of psychoanalytical psychology. When we apply his theories and method to literature, we engage in archetypal criticism. With the publication of his work, Anatomy of Criticism in 1957, Frey became the primary advocate of the principle of archetypal criticism in literary theory. Free borrows Jung's semantic of symbols and how they may operate in a literary text. Free believes that all literature comprises one complete and whole story called the monomyth that can best be diagrammed as a circle containing four different phases, with each phase corresponding to a season of the year and to peculiar cycles of human experience. Frey provides us a semantic of all possible kinds of stories. With such a structural framework, furnish the context whereby we can identify stories according to literary elements and compare and contrast theories on the basis of all of their relationship among themselves. With the advent of archetypal criticism and free semantic in the 1950s, and few critics should leave Freudian analysis in their practical criticism. But in 1960s, the French psychoanalytic and neo-Freudian Jacques Lacan helped revive Freudian criticism and position as it as one of the leading psychoanalytic approach to literature today. Like his fellow structuralists and post-analytic critics, Lacan borrowed from while simultaneously challenging some of the theories of the father of modern linguistics, Ferdinand de Saussure. Lacan decrees that the unconscious is structured like a language, and it is to Saussure that Lacan turns to find the structure of language. Lacan disagrees with Saussure's foundational principle that language is stable through a chain of linguistic reasoning. In Lacan's view, there are no absolutes outside language itself. He also declared that dreams are structured on linguistic principles and therefore can be scientifically analyzed. Assumption. Central to psychoanalytic criticism is Freud's assumption that all artists, including others, are neurotic. Unlike most other neurotics, however, the artists escape many of the outward manifestations and end the result of neurosis, such as madness or self-destruction, by finding in the act of creating his or her art a pathway back to saneness and wholeness. Freud believed that an author's chief motivation for writing any story is to gratify same secret desire that will becomes the literary work itself, and thus he believed that the literary work is a product of the author's dream or fantasy. Based on Freud theory, it can be inferred that the text can and must be analyzed like a dream that he believed originated from one desire or wish from their past. Those desires are brought back by one unconscious and consciousness states. However, the ego often distorts, hides, and alters the wish/latent content of the dream. This altered dream/manifest content must be analyzed by dream analysis to analyze one true wish. Like the dream analysis, the psychoanalytical critic believes that any other story is a dream that on the surface reveal only the manifest content of the tale, hidden and censored throughout the story of various level lies the latent content of the story, its real meaning or interpretation, and it is believed that the true meaning can be brought to the surface by applying the Freudian dream analysis. Methodology. Although Freud's psychoanalytical criticism has been challenged and revised from around 1920 to 1930s, it provides a stimulating approach to literary analysis that the great human often fails to note the influence of the unconsciousness on both our motivation and action. At the beginning, psychoanalysis criticism focused on construct the outer personality by studying their idiosyncrasies, internal and external conflict, and most importantly, its neurosis. But in the 1950s, it turned its attention to the character of the story, focusing to analyze the character based on the interpretation of both author and reader. Overall, analytic criticism still relies heavily on Freud theories and declaration concerning the development of human personality and the underlying motivation concerning our action. By directly applying Freud's psychoanalytic techniques of dream analysis, personality development, and psychoanalytical theories, psychoanalytic critics decree that they can dive beneath the surface level of a text and ascertain its true meaning. Thank you very much for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.